Tonight we're talking about a man who should not exist. A man who shows up in royal courts in secret letters, occult rituals, and supposedly throughout centuries. He was called a spy, an alchemist, a fraud, a magician, and some people even say that he's immortal. Some go as far as to say that he was a vampire. Welcome back to X-UMED. I'm Lisa.
I'm Samantha.
This is the strange life of the Count of Saint Germain, once described as a man who does not die and who knows everything. So we'll start with the basics. We don't know his real name. We don't know when he was born. We don't know where he was born. There's speculation to who his parents are, but nothing can be proven. He's even said to be the illegitimate son of a prince in Eastern Europe, but still no proof. And this is weird because this is someone who was constantly around important people in the 17th century, like royalty. This guy hung out with kings and philosophers, but his backstory basically doesn't even exist. History calls him Count of Saint Germain because that's the name he gave. We know he was active in the European courts in the 1700s. He shows up in London, Paris, the Netherlands, and Germany. He speaks a ton of languages, plays violin perfectly, paints, composes music, writes. He does alchemy.
What is that?
It's like a type of chemistry. When I think of alchemy, I think of it as like making potions and stuff like that, you know, putting two things together to make something else. So yeah, a type of chemistry. And he dabbled in diplomacy. People would ask him who he really was, and he would always dodge the question. He would always just kind of like laugh it off, or he would go ahead and hint around in certain ways that he was much older than he looked. And he would tell these crazy stories in history as if he was actually there for it, but it was like 200 years ago and you look 40.
You know, I mean, I've read a little bit about him. So some of this is going to be a refresher to me, but some I'm not going to have any idea about. It's sounding a little familiar.
I've heard bits and pieces about his story, but I've gotten it mixed up with other people. And the two people that I mix up might actually be him. It's crazy. Most historians date him back to around like 1690 when he was born, like 1690, 1710. But there are dates all over the place, and some legends even say the 1500s. He even has ties to Atlantis. I'll get to that later because that was really interesting.
Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah. Go watch that episode. He's mentioned by people in letters. In 1745, a man named Horace Walpole in London. He was a British writer and politician. He writes a letter describing a bizarre man who's been hanging around London for the past couple of years. He says, this guy calls himself Count Saint Germain. He refuses to say where he's from, says he doesn't go by his real name, insists he's never been involved with any women. He's rich, dresses incredibly well, wears tons of jewels, and he's an amazing musician. But no one can figure out how he makes his money. So Walpole got suspicious. Kind of looked into him a little bit because, you know, he looks rich as hell. He's very mysterious. How's he getting his money? Is he a criminal?
Fortunes from living for so long?
That's one theory. Yeah. Now, at this time, there was a lot of political tension, and the British government actually, at one point, arrested Saint Germain for being a spy. They thought that's how he was making his money. Maybe he was a spy. They questioned him. They can't pin anything on him, so they had to let him go. That's all there was to it. After London, he turns up in France and finds himself in the orbit of King Louis XV and becomes kind of a celebrity at court. He plays perfect violin. He tells stories of places he's supposedly been and shows off his skill with gemstones and dyes. Like dyes, I don't know if he's making the gemstones different colors or if he's making dyes for fabrics or both.
It could be fabrics. So royalty wore purple because purple was very expensive color. So he could be wearing purple or making purple.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. He hints that he has advanced knowledge of chemistry and alchemy, and he can manipulate gemstones. What he does with the gemstones, because he demonstrates this stuff. What he does with these gemstones is he'll find a cheap one, and he'll do all this sorcery to it, and he'll make it look like a really expensive one. Sometimes he can break them apart and make them smaller gemstones. Sometimes he can make them bigger, change the colors of them and everything. Now, imagine being at a fancy royal party, and there's that one dude who's like, yeah, I've personally met every famous person. I've solved death and also wrote an opera.
Hold on, I solved death?
Yeah, I'd be like, that dude's a douche. You know?
That could also be witchcraft, or you could be put to death for saying things like that.
Well, he was in the royal court, and he ended up being very respected. He ended up being an advisor to King Louis XV. So, stands to reason that he was protected.
Yeah.
Casanova, you know who Casanova is, right? Kind of,
Yeah.
sort of. Casanova met him once and says, he talks too much and exaggerates, never tells you who he is, but he's damn interesting. And that's a lot coming from Casanova.
Yeah.
I mean, that's saying a lot coming from him. Casanova, he was not exactly a good guy. He had all kinds of sexual conquests with men and women, lied to women for financial gain, created false identities. That's exactly what H.H. Holmes did. Basically deceived women and then abandoned them as soon as he got what he was looking for.
H.H. Holmes.
Yeah. But, he doesn't like Saint Germain.
Well,
He's first of all, being a hypocrite. Second of all, did he see him as competition?
Could have, yeah.
Then there's Voltaire. Do you know who Voltaire is?
Yes, and I've also seen his crypt at Paris. It was really neat.
Cool.
Pretty sure it was him.
Well, for people who might not know, he's an Enlightenment writer. He described Germain in a letter as a man who does not die and who knows everything. He was probably being sarcastic, but at the same time, he never answered questions about his age. But he would also say that he remembered being at council meetings, like back in the 1500s, which would make him like a couple hundred years old.
So Voltaire saw him in council meetings?
No, Voltaire just met him.
Okay.
And he sat and talked with him, and Saint Germain would tell these crazy stories, as if he was there himself. And he would kind of hint around that, yeah, you're right, I am old as fuck. Someone would mention a historical figure, and he'd be like, ah, yes, charming man. As if he had met him, And they'd be like, dude, he died 200 years ago.
It's like, oh, shit.
Yeah. But he was so convincing. It could have just been him messing with people, but he was so convincing. It seems like he was trying to tell people who he was, but no one really believed him because it was so outlandish. If you were, okay, for instance, I'm going to talk about somebody later, but okay, let's say you're a vampire. And you're trying to tell everybody, I'm a vampire, this is real. Nobody believes you because vampires don't exist. So, you're trying to tell them, maybe in roundabout ways, but you're trying to tell them, and they think you're full of shit, but you're telling them the truth. It seems like that's what Germain was doing. But he was interesting enough and mysterious enough for people to kind of gravitate toward him and want to hang out with him and talk with him. What really appeals to occultists is his reputation as an alchemist, chasing the elixir of life. This is where we get into him solving death. Like I said, Germain performed demonstrations of strange chemical skills. He would manipulate gemstones, as I said, and he talked about secret recipes that could heal or even preserve.
So potions.
Potions, remedies. I mean, recipes that heal would be like medicine. Recipes that preserve could be more like a potion, or even beauty products, like skin oils and lotions and things like that.
Hell, it could even be like lip balm.
Yeah. He's also rumored to have achieved immortality. Alchemy is tied to spiritual transformation, hidden knowledge, and creating an elixir that could prolong life or grant immortality. And it said that this is what Saint Germain was working towards. So he either knew advanced alchemy or he was scamming people. Nobody's ever going to know. He's also tied to manuscripts. And this part I think is really weird. Okay. There's a manuscript, a book called The Most Holy Trinosophia. I don't know if I said that right. And the Triangular Book of Saint Germain. Both are full of alchemical symbolism, ritual instructions, and talks of extending life and gaining wealth. The thing is, these completely feed into the legend of Germain achieving immortality and finding the cheat codes to reality. But it's debatable if he actually even wrote these. It can't be proven as fact. I want to know where these books are.
Could be in everything that the Vatican has.
Shoot. I mean, the Vatican is holding a lot more mysterious shit than that, though. I don't think they're going to care about Saint Germain. They're going to be like, that yahoo can get the hell out of here. I don't care about him. Keep in mind, he was prevalent in royal courts. Kings and princesses, royalty, listened to him. Mm-hmm. They respected him. King Louis XV trusted Germain so much that he sent him on secret diplomatic missions for him. During, like, the 7 Years' War and the French Revolution, he would send him on these missions to, like, communicate. He sent him to this place called, I don't know if I'm saying this right, maybe you're more familiar with this kind of history. The Hague, or I don't know, Hague. What would that be?
Hogue, I think.
Okay. Well, he was sent there basically to see if he could quietly negotiate peace with England during a rough period. He traveled under different names, carried secret letters with him, and moved between courts.
Huh.
Just communicating for King Louis XV.
What King Louis XV, was that French?
Yes.
And what year was this roughly? 1700s?
Ish 1700s, yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised with that because Nostradamus did the same thing in the late 1500s, early 1600s. He was kind of part of the French court. The queen at that time constantly went to Nostradamus for all of the information about, like, what's going to happen. What's the story? So, okay, I'm not surprised then.
Think about this. Just think about it for a second. What if Saint Germain was Nostradamus? What if they're both the same person?
Well, that would be interesting.
I mean, it's possible because no one knows who this dude is. And he shows up. It's crazy. Just, I will continue. He's later credited to have warned the French monarchy about coming revolutions, saying he saw disaster. He saw disaster coming. Now think about this. If you've lived for centuries, you've seen war after war. You've seen things play out to the point where you can predict what's going to happen. And you can tell people what you're thinking about doing right now is not a good idea because this is how it's going to play out. I've seen it happen before. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he would do. It makes it easy to predict what's going to happen when you've seen it happen over and over and over again because you're an immortal. You've been there for all of it. And he has a strange way of just casually mentioning different centuries he claimed to be in, as if time didn't work the same way for him that it works for us. Like he wasn't completely physically anchored to a single era. Like he could kind of slip from one timeline to another, like a time traveler. There's a theory that he's a time traveler. And the way that he will slip into these stories, the way that he'll just like casually mention things and everyone's like, wait a minute, like what? What did he just say? Like he does it like it's second nature, as if he's not even really meaning to. It makes him very, very convincing. It's worth noting, while we're at it, that he is believed to be a Freemason. The Freemasons, if I remember right, were... I think it was 1717 that they were formed.
I don't know.
That would be in his time. That would be in the time that he's doing all the shit. So he's believed to be a Freemason, as well as all kinds of other underground secret societies. He was believed to be present during the Declaration of Independence. He didn't sign it, but the story is that during the Declaration of Independence, you could not walk into this meeting as like a civilian. Like, you couldn't just walk into this meeting. It was kind of like a secret meeting. By signing the Declaration, it was committing treason. They were facing the death penalty by signing this. And it's believed that Benjamin Franklin brought in this respected philosopher as a guest to witness the signing and also to give a speech. He gave a speech that convinced and empowered and inspired more people to sign this declaration. Because everyone was scared. Like, if I sign this, I'm going to be executed. And they think that philosopher was Saint Germain. However, Saint Germain was placed in Germany during the signing of the Declaration. Like, somebody traced it back, like that couldn't have been Saint Germain because he was in Germany at this time when this was happening.
Okay.
However, there are other people that believe that Saint Germain died before the Declaration was even signed. He's a mystery. He was also believed to help design the very first American flag. And I'm not saying the one that, who was it, Betsy Ross?
Ooh.
Who made the first American flag with the stars in a circle?
Yeah.
There was one before that, and it looked like a Freemason flag. And Saint Germain was supposed to have helped design that.
Oh, that's neat. If that's true,
I mean,
that's neat.
Who the hell knows if it's true? Nobody knows if any of this is true. The only thing that we do know is that Saint Germain was a person who existed. He was a real person. So here's where the story gets kind of urban legendy in a way. There are accounts of people claiming to see him decades apart. He's supposed to have popped up at the court of King Louis XV during the French Revolution. The Declaration, he was supposed to be a Freemason, 7 Years' War, all that stuff. But then he starts popping up in the 19th century, the 20th century. And he never looks any different. He never ages. He looks about 40, and he's described as a very good-looking man. Very good-looking man with pale skin, jet black hair, and a beard. Occultists, though, give a description of him having lavender-colored hair. I mean,
if it's that black, maybe in certain lighting.
Lavender is a very, isn't it a very...
It's a light color.
Like a light purple, which, yeah, I mean, if someone's like a wizard, purple hair fits. Who knows if it's true? I don't know. Nobody knows if any of this is true.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Now we get to the story of when Countess von Georg met Saint Germain. The Countess heard of a mysterious Saint Germain at a party hosted by Madame Pompadour, who was King Louis XV's mistress. And as we know, mistresses and kings, that was a common thing. So she recognized Saint Germain as the same man she had known in Venice in 1710, 30 years ago. And she was kind of shocked. And he asked him if, like, he was a descendant of Saint Germain. Like, is that your father? And he said no. Saint Germain confirmed that he was the same person, even recalling details of their previous meeting, claiming he was quite old but looked the same, much to her astonishment. So he admitted to her. Like, he doesn't admit to many things. To most people, he will hint around that, yeah, I'm way older than I look, but he kind of confirmed it with her.
30 years is something different than 200 years. But still, 30 years ages you.
Yeah. If you look 40 30 years ago, you're not still going to look 40.
No.
And he hadn't aged. Now let's go to the 19th and 20th century. Occultists argue that Germain never died at all. He's thought of to be a higher being who guides humanity behind the scenes. Because he's seen it all, you know? He can predict outcomes. He advises very important people. So he's kind of like the mysterious behind the scenes person, you know? Okay, so he is linked to the seventh ray. The seventh ray is a ceremonial order of magic. And right away I'm thinking, okay, he's a wizard. The seventh ray deals with transformation, freedom, transmutation, and the seventh ray was actually led by Master Saint Germain. He's linked to the Age of Aquarius, which was basically an age of spiritual enlightenment, a major shift in human consciousness, technology, and social structure, which I kind of feel like happens every 10 years, 10, 20 years. The occult calls Germain an ascended master, also believed to occasionally incarnate as different famous people. So here's a different twist. He reincarnates. So he's got all these different death dates. Nobody can pin down when he died, but he's always popping back up.
And he would have to have, the way that some people say that they can remember past lives, but you don't remember in such detail.
Well,
You'd think.
what's believed is that, I'm going to get into this later, but he remembers all of his past lives. That's why he is so skilled. That's why he is so smart. That's why he has all of these abilities. Is because he reincarnates, but he remembers the knowledge that he gained in his past lives. He carries that knowledge with him from life to life. But did he really die? In Germany, there is a church, there's church records listing the death to be in 1784. At this time, he was living under the protection of Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel, and he was doing experiments in a laboratory. He was doing alchemy and working with dyes. And he's said to be buried there in some church. There was an inventory of his stuff found, but it was nothing special. They didn't find any elixir of life. They didn't find anything like that. They found some clothes, some toiletries, a little bit of money. That's it. And there's one source that said that he decided that he was tired of life. He just grew tired of it and let himself die.
Almost sounds like a anti-aging potion. Maybe he stopped taking it?
Maybe, because, I mean, if you've lived for centuries, you've watched so many people you care about die. You've seen so much shit happen. You have met all kinds of different people. Some people you wish you never met. You know, you've witnessed so much. And eventually, yeah, you'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Especially with the way that humanity changes.
Yeah. But occultists argue that the records are false and the body buried is just a decoy body. This, I mean, they want to keep his legend alive. They don't want to believe that he died. Just like, you know, people believe that Elvis and Tupac and Michael Jackson are still alive.
Yeah.
In their defense, though, all three of those people had every reason to fake their death.
That is true, yeah.
Who knows? This man existed. He did exist. He left his art behind. He composed music. There are pieces published under his name, songs. This is the part that is confusing to me, though, because people argue over which songs are actually his. He left these songs behind. Isn't his name attached to them? How do they not know which songs were his? Unless he just didn't attach his name to it and the information, that knowledge had been lost to time. But I guess this music is still around somewhere today.
It's got to be sheets, like music sheets.
Maybe. But, I mean, this is just another thing that makes him immortal. His manuscripts, the books that he was supposed to have written, the music that he was supposed to have written, writing and music, you create that stuff, it kind of immortalizes you. Even after you're gone, people are still listening to and reading that stuff, especially if it's interesting enough, like alchemy books.
Or they get burned.
Depends on who gets a hold of them.
Exactly.
So he pops up in literature. He pops up in old biographies, occult texts that hail him as almost a saint, but a mystery at the same time. There are books on him that try to piece together his life, but no one's been able to, obviously. And these books go in the direction of him being more than human. It just seems like that is the only thing that makes sense. So now there's the belief we talked about how he's just being reincarnated and keeping his memory intact from all of the past lives. That makes sense, but throughout centuries, they keep saying he never seems to age. He always looks the same. If he's dying and reincarnating, he's going to be different people. He's not going to look the same.
But I've also read somewhere where a painting, he was painted at one point and it showed up like 200 years later and it still looked like the exact same person.
What do you mean?
It's probably completely bullshit, but a
Oh,
painting, he
the
was
painting was
it
somebody
was
found
him,
the
but it was 200 years later.
and there was somebody walking around who looked exactly like him and
Yeah.
claimed to be him, and that 200-year-old painting looked exactly like him.
Yeah, he claimed that it was not him, even though the painting looked exactly like him.
Well, I mean, that happens. Have you seen old pictures of people?
Yeah, like Nicolas
Nicolas
Cage.
Cage,
I think Keanu Reeves is one.
Keanu Reeves. Yeah, everyone thinks Keanu Reeves is a time traveler. Who knows?
Possible.
Other people say that it's immortality, that he's actually an immortal. Some people think that he was just a con man with a flair for theatrics. Like, people thought he was really interesting and he was a really, really good storyteller. He was like,
Or
hey,
one-
I'll go with this.
Yeah, or one hell of a historian.
Remember when I told you that he has ties to Atlantis?
Yes.
Yeah. So mystics and occultists believe that this is reincarnation, and his very first incarnation was back in Atlantis. Think of how advanced they were and the knowledge that they probably had. The alchemy, the gemstones, all that stuff.
It's kind of amazing that we're going back. We're talking about someone who actually was kind of real, was real in time, but
Yeah.
trying to figure out what his deal was. So we're going to an area where it's still mythology and
Yeah.
trying to explain it.
Yeah.
But with how much, like, I like the Atlantean thing. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And Atlanteans kind of were human, but they weren't. They were something else.
They were just much more educated beyond our comprehension.
And who knows how long they were able to live. Like, our lifespan is what, 70 to 90 years, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
In the Bible, people lived to be a few hundred years old. I think I read about one guy living to be over 1,000 years old. So
Sounds exhausting.
it really, really does. But I think time just worked differently. But it makes sense that he would have these like superhuman abilities to be able to live longer and
He
stay the
survived.
same age. Huh?
He survived.
Yeah, whatever happened in Atlantis, maybe he survived it. But it does make sense. In a weird way, it makes sense. If he's being reincarnated and he's carrying all this knowledge with him, he not only has the knowledge of Atlantis, for fuck's sake, but then he's got all of this new knowledge that he's learning along the way to add to it.
And probably retaining that information very well. Like, I can't remember the word, but Sheldon Cooper. When you see it once, you have it memorized.
Isn't that like a savant or something?
I can't remember what it's an actual term. My brain's fried right now. I can't think of the name.
Oh, and it's also believed that when he was an Atlantean, he was a high priest. So not just a regular Atlantean. He was like respected even then. He was high up there in the ranks. So he probably had like the advanced knowledge of the Atlanteans that maybe like the other Atlantean civilians didn't all the way know.
He had all the knowledge.
He had all of the knowledge. He knew all the things. So yeah, nobody knows when he was born. Nobody knows where he came from. Nobody even can pinpoint like a nationality because he's just all over the place. And there's so many different death dates. Nobody can pin him down anywhere. But there's all of these rumors and all of these accounts of people meeting him and being like, this guy, there's something up with this guy. And so you'd pretty much believe anything that you were told about him because nothing can be proven. And there's so much that he did. Like, I'm not even covering all of it. I'm only covering like the main bullet points. There's so much more. That's why it was hard to do this research. Now, let's kind of sort of move off Saint Germain, but not really. Remember when I said that people believe that he was a vampire? There really aren't very many. I mean, I didn't find really any accounts of people thinking that Count of Saint Germain was a vampire, but in 1902, a man popped up in New Orleans in the French Quarter, and he was living in a house on 1041 Royal Street. His name was Jacques Saint Germain.
Jacques, isn't that French?
Yeah. He came from France, and he ended up in New Orleans.
As most French people did.
I don't even have to look at my notes for this one.
The wars.
So, Jacques Saint Germain looked just like the Count of Saint Germain, and he claimed that he was actually a descendant of Count of Saint Germain. He didn't claim to be him, but he did claim that he was a descendant. He would tell all the same kinds of stories that Count of Saint Germain would tell that would hint that he was way, way older than he really was. He looked like he was about 40, just like the Count. Everything was the same. He even advised important people on things. He made sure that he surrounded himself with important people. He threw these crazy fancy-ass parties, these very elaborate parties, these very extravagant meals he would feed his party guests. But people noticed that he would never eat. The only thing that they saw him consume was some kind of red liquid that he would say was either red wine or a type of tea. So one night, he takes a woman to his room. Some say that she was a hooker. Some say that she was just a party guest. Nobody really knows who she was. But she ends up jumping out of his window. And the story was that he took her up to his room, and they were kind of, he was a womanizer. He liked the women. Not like Count Saint Germain, who said that he had never been involved with women. And she said that he attacked her and bit her neck. And she got scared, needed to get away from him, so she jumped out the window. She told police this before she later died in the hospital. So they went to Germain's house and they searched it. Germain was gone. All he left behind was maybe some clothing and his jewelry, because he also wore really elaborate jewelry like the Count did. He had no cutlery, no dishes. All he had was bottles of wine. But when they opened these bottles of wine, they realized it wasn't wine. It was blood. And Germain was never seen again. This was in 1902. When you think about it, not that long ago. Do you think maybe it was still the Count?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe he was getting so old that he kind of had to change up his story a little bit. Maybe he was hiding the fact that he was a vampire really, really well before, but not so much later.
It's not that I believe really any of this, but I want to believe it all.
I know. I want to. I don't, but I do at the same time. If it can't be proven, you can't prove it didn't happen.
So it's more of, which is your favorite story of it?
Yeah.
What do you want to be real?
Yeah. There's one more person that I want to talk about, though. And this is just my personal opinion. And I got to talk about this guy because I love this guy. He's my favorite TikToker. You know who I'm going to talk about because I sent you a couple of his videos. If you like vampire stories, go to TikTok and look up Domo Draper, D-O-M-O. This guy is so cool. He claims to be a vampire, and like I said before, nobody's going to believe him. Vampires don't exist, and he's always hypothetically. He always puts that in there, hypothetically. But he does it in a way where it's I'm telling you the truth. I really am telling you the truth. And there's sometimes that he's talking about how he's pissing people off telling these stories because these stories are real. And he's got higher ups that are pissed. And there's a storyline where he had to go to China, I think, for a little while to talk to the Chinese Vampire Council, or I can't even remember what it was, but it is crazy how convincing he is. He shows his fangs. He'll show you a picture of himself from a couple of 100 years ago, which
yeah,
anybody can do that. But I don't know how he does the camera work. The sorcery that he does with the camera when it comes to the fangs. Have you seen
is an incredible thing. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. But the way that he describes what it feels like when he, you have to have a reason for your fangs to come out You can't just like let them pop out just because you want to show people, because that hurts. He says when he's getting ready to feed, that's when the fangs just automatically come out because they have a reason to. If you force them out, it hurts. And after he lets them come down and then lets them go back up, he's like, my gums hurt. My gums are going to hurt for a couple of days now. But you guys wanted to see it, so here we go. But he's so convincing. And he tells these... What?
Some type of medical implants. People are doing amazing things, crazy, stupid things, but whatever.
I don't know. Just, I mean, find him on TikTok and go to his vampire playlist and like just watch the videos in order because he gets more elaborate with it and everything. And he tells these stories just like Count of Saint Germain did, where it's almost like he's not just telling a story in history. He's telling the story as if he knew these people and he was there.
I hope it's real.
I kind of hope it is too, because he's always like, look, who's going to believe me? Like, in one of them showed his fridge, the things that he has in his fridge, and he's got like all of these jars of red liquid. And he's like, oh, these over here, these are beet juice. This is wine over here. This is this. And I mean, obviously it's all blood, but the way it sounds stupid, it sounds really hokey. Like, how the fuck are you going to believe this? But watch the videos. He's so convincing. And there is one that I really wish I would have seen before we did a specific episode. I'm not going to give it away, but it is so interesting. He talks about a vampire sanctuary. I love that one. It's my favorite one. I sent that one to you. After a certain 2-part episode you did?
Oh, yeah, I remember now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't give it away. Just go
I
watch
remember.
it. Maybe Damo Draper is the new incarnation of Count Saint Germain. Could be.
Well, it would be an amazing time to come out.
It would.
Because no one's going to believe. 100 years ago, 150 years ago, yeah, people might believe. 300 years ago, you say it, you're just going to be getting burnt or hung or ripped apart. And now people are going to think, oh, it's just attention. Oh, it's something. Today would be a good time period to admit. Yeah. Because we don't believe anything anymore. We do, but we don't.
On one hand, we believe everything now because truth is crazier than a lie these days. But on the other hand, we don't believe anything we're told anymore because we've been lied to too much and now we know.
Yes.
So it's the perfect time. And if vampires are actually real and they come forward and say, hey, we've been here all along, can we be friends? There's a lot of people that are going to be like, okay, cool, inclusion.
Yeah. Or, people as society, people can handle it. Society can't.
Yeah. A person can handle it. People cannot. Mass hysteria and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
I like Atlantis. I picked that. He's an Atlantean, which we can go back even further, which he could be an alien. Because aliens pop up in almost every episode.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I mean, what do you guys think he is? Do you think he's an Atlantean? Do you think he's just being reincarnated and remembering all of his knowledge from all his past lives? Is he a vampire? Did he really discover the elixir of life? Is he still alive now? Or is it all just bullshit? Was he just some dude that just conned everyone into believing because he thought it was funny? Like, I don't think that he needed to gain anything from these people. He wasn't really conning anything out of them. He was just kind of hanging out with them and he was given really good advice. He was an advisor during wars to the king and everything. Like, he didn't really have anything to gain. So, like, because he was already rich and
but
what did he have to gain?
Of life.
Yeah, but like, I'm sure that his stories, if it was all bullshit, he was having fun with it. It's like, these people are kind of sort of believing me. I'm going to keep this going, It could just be that. So who knows? If you're watching this on YouTube, right down there is the comment section. Comment and tell us what you think is going on. Maybe I'll create a poll for this one.
Yeah, try it.
Yeah. That's all I have on that, though. I hope this turned out well.
Yeah,
I was
me too.
excited about this one. If you like what you've been hearing, do all of the things. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, comment, let us know what you think.
All these things really help us out.
Helps us grow, and tell other people who like cool stuff, because we talk about some cool stuff. So I guess that's it.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
All right.
I think we're talking about the Ouija board next week. Not sure. That one's going to be interesting too. So tune in next week.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.